So now it's my joy and honor to welcome Anita Fast here today. Yay! Anita is a part of the staff team at Trinity-Grace United Church. She lives in East Vancouver, very close to me, fortunately for me, with her wife, three teenagers, and three animal companions. She loves thoughtful speaking and deep listening, forest and mountain and beach walks, and trying on new perspectives and ways of knowing. So we're very excited to welcome Anita today to talk to us about Advent. I know she's got some exciting rituals and plans for us today. So I'll turn it over to Anita.
Sent out to people who would be online uh, materials and whatnot, so you could participate in a different way. I didn't think that one through, so hopefully your participation can be observation and so watch what we're doing here. But I don't know if people will need these either. Also, I have a handout, which will be difficult to, but
Take part enough of it.
yeah. I mean, the songs are all actually fairly well known, aside from one, but all, as I mentioned, I'll navigate my way through that.
Can everyone hear Anita okay? Is the volume?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I'll try to
Great.
talk loud in this
good.
direction. This is the one that's picking me up.
You got it.
Okay, I'm also going to distribute a few props to the four folks who are here. Maybe just take like a few of those and a few piece frame.
This is so cheerful. I love it so much.
There you go.
I don't know where.
Need more than one.
Oh, wow.
They all have to. They all have to make their way onto the.
Oh, you know
So you see what it is that we have, right? We have some little cranes, folded origami cranes, and then some like some decorations. And can folks see this from one of the angles as well? If it's in the middle, sort of.
Yes, I think.
Yes.
Maybe let's try to get more of it.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Both angles.
Okay.
Being able to see.
I'll just be in the corner, which is, this is the subject. Okay. So, 4 Sundays before the Feast of Christmas Day, the 25th, is actually when Christians celebrate our New Year. A whole month before January 1st. We don't really have New Year's Eve parties. We begin what is called the season of Advent. And the story, the Christian story, begins as the creation moves towards darkness. As the winter solstice appeared or approached, Christians, early church started talking about this season as Adventus or a coming. It's the Latin word to come or coming. And so Advent in the early church was really the right naming of the season when light and life are fading, because for the Christian faithful, the good news was rooted in the proclamation that there is one who is the source of all life and the one who comes with us, even and especially in times of darkness and in death, the one who brings a new beginning. So, as well, at the time, it's hard to imagine now, I think, that we think of Christianity as sort of this big world religion, but at the time it was really a fledgling communities growing within a Roman Empire where the main religious life was pagan. And there were at the time, also in that season, pagan rituals of the Festival of Lights and sort of a celebration of the victory of light over darkness. And so the early church, as I think most traditions do, they work with and pick up what their culture around them is already doing and work it into their old way of living. And that's what happened. And so Advent became Christianity's way of moving in step with creation, as the pagan empire was doing at the time. So this isn't always thought of in terms of at Christmas, but for Christians, Advent is actually anticipation for two different comings. It's twofold. So there's the coming of Christ at birth, and also anticipation of the second coming of Christ. So the cycle is not doesn't end. It kind of is able to continue. So the second coming of Christ then is the fulfillment of God's plan beginning in the birth of Christ, the fulfillment of God's plan for the flourishing of all creation. So Advent isn't only a time of sort of looking back and remembering, it's also a time of looking forward towards something yet to come. Although Advent is an ancient tradition, a lot of the things that we associate with Advent, like the Advent wreath or the lighting of candles, only emerged over time. It wasn't decided upon in some committee back in the second century. Let's do this, but it really, I think as ceremonies often do, it sort of developed over time. And it wasn't really until the 20th century that the four themes that we think of during Advent, hope, peace, joy, and love, became part of the tradition. Really entered as a way for the church to provide Christians something to focus on during the weeks. Interestingly, I didn't grow up really understanding anything about Advent at all. In the Mennonite tradition was my tradition. It was more of a Catholic thing, maybe Anglican, I'm not sure. But nowadays it's everywhere. And of course, we have the Advent calendars, which start on December 1st, which is not really the beginning of Advent. It begins forward, so that date always changes. So I always get a little bit of grumpy and sort of it's sort of a amused sort of way, not really. But these themes are meant for us to reflect on the gifts of God, of the gifts of hope, peace, joy, and love, which in the Christian tradition are seen as gifts that we're given. They're not really things that we ourselves do or have. The gifts that we're given. And so during Advent, we're invited to journey through each week as darkness gets darker, to really make space for these things in our lives as we prepare for both celebrating the first coming of Jesus and then also anticipating a second coming when God's promises will be fulfilled ultimately. So this morning I was thinking, well, what do I want to do? And do I just talk about Advent? And that seems a little bit boring. So what I wanted to do was actually take all of you, sort of do a bit of a fast forward through the 4 weeks of Advent, even though right now we're in the second week of Advent. But I'd like to take you sort of through the 4 weeks of Advent, drawing on what typically is a month-long ritual that I created for my family and my neighbors outside that sort of preceded for the 4 weeks. So by setting my reflections within the ceremony, I'm just hoping that Advent you get a little bit more of a taste of the Christian tradition. I'll have my notes. I try not to refer too much, but it's about 12 years ago now that I decided to build what I call an Advent garden in my front yard and invite my neighbors to join. Some of my neighbors grew up in churches, several were Hindu, but all of them with their children celebrated Christmas with Christmas trees and that sort of thing. But my hope was that by sharing with them a little bit of something that makes this season religiously sacred to me as a Christian, but also just help make their own experiences of the season a little bit more meaningful as well. And so generally there ended up being about 8 children and 8 adults who would gather each Sunday as the light disappeared, sort of between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, depending on soccer games. every for the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, to engage in this public ritual on the themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. So from time to time, we get some curious bystanders, or a neighbor from across the street would wander over and wonder what we're doing. But typically, it sort of was my immediate neighbors, and then one family that drove over from a couple blocks away. So we don't have 4 weeks and we don't have a full garden, but I brought a small substitute. And so you're going to participate in little pieces of the ritual. And what I'd like to do this morning is take you through each theme and basically what I would do with the neighbors. I would talk a little bit about the theme of the week and what it meant to me, and then we would do something of the ritual. And I've handed out a few props for you to do it, and then we'd end with the singing of a song. Generally a fairly simple song that is known to everybody, led by the children. And we have no children here, so we'll just pull our inner child and sing the songs together. The songs are, since you don't have a song sheet there, and I don't know, Bruce, and if you want to play the guitar along or not, it's up to you. But I'll just sort of leave it to them.
Except that one piece. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I'll just sing that a cappella as best I can, and people can do what they do with it. But the songs are This Little Light of Mine. The one you might not know is Just One Candle, Joy to the World, and Silent Night. So most of them I think you're familiar with, and we'll do together. So hope. When Christians are invited to reflect on hope, we're reminded that the sort of hope we're invited to have is neither a naive optimism nor simply a want or a desire, such as, oh, I hope that I get a new book for Christmas. Or even a very, something that's very valid. One might say, I hope you feel better soon. This is not the type of hope that we are asked to reflect on or that we think of as a gift of God. Hope that is a gift from God is really birthed in the darkness, because it's ultimately a trust in the Holy One and in God's faithfulness to us. So hope allows us to stand within uncertainty, sometimes even to stand on the edge of despair and still believe in the overwhelming power of life. It's rooted not in any evidence that things are going to turn out well, but in the faith that all things will be well, however they turn out. So as such, to mark the first week of Advent, my neighbors and I entered the first section of the garden. Now it's going to sound like my front yard is really big. It's not particularly, but it did sort of have distinctive sort of sections, which I was able to do different things in. So the first area, we came off the sidewalk into it by ducking underneath sort of a low-lying tree with low branches. And my idea was that the ducking under gave people a sense of humility, that we're kind of bowing low, maybe touching the ground, even if you're really tall. Because in order to accept the gift of hope, we need to have a bit of a humility in recognizing that we really aren't in control. We don't have not everything's up to us, and we don't carry possibility in and of ourselves and our actions. So you need a bit of a humility to really release that. And in that section of the garden, I put a bunch of candles like this, but they were actually in jars to protect them from the rain and the wind, which was often happening on Sundays outside in late November. And as each person lit a candle, I just invited them to say in their hearts or aloud a person or a place that they wished for the gift of hope at the time. And then after everybody had walked through the garden, ideally we did this in silence, but with 8 children there, that was very difficult. So usually there ended up being little soccer games being played somewhere else or not. But the idea is for it to be so quiet and meditative as everybody did this, and then we would sing This Little Light of Mine together. So let's light the candle. I put 5 here because there's 5 of us here. So yeah, why don't whoever wants to go first has that, and just we can take a minute of silence to light them and just say someone or something that you wish for. Yeah, and at home, if you have a candle nearby and you'd like to light a candle, please feel free.
And I did put the lyrics for the songs in the chat as well. I wish hope for all of my patients at the hospital.
I wish hope for anyone who is alone this holiday season. Hope for young people if they feel like they have a good future ahead of them.
I hope that I'm sending the gift of hope to Sarah, who is a friend who is in the process of dying from cancer.
My hope this morning is for my friend Chris, whose wife Judy, very good friend of mine, died 1 year ago. And I really hope for him and their children as they navigate this holiday season without her once again. You want to invite people to unmute and Sarah?
Sure, if folks want to unmute and share a person or a situation that could use the gift of hope this season.
I would hope for world peace.
I would hope for my dear young friend, 16 years old, who has had a very hard life and had finally broken and is in a psychiatric unit, and I'm hoping that she can get help and find peace.
Right, we get out our little candles. Our fingers.
Like, where?
We would always say.
Yeah.
Children, like, this little light of mine, can't go wrong with that song. Okay, and that would bring us, I would always try to kind of go out every night and light the candles in the Hope Garden again, just to provide a little bit of light as people walked by on the streets and whatnot. And then Advent 2 would come, which is the Advent that starts tomorrow, I guess, which is peace. And Jesus said to his disciples, "My peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let your heart not be troubled, let it not be afraid." So when we find a place for hope in our lives, the ground is being tilled for the work of peace, a true peace, not a peace that the world gives, which is usually a peace that is kept under the threat of violence, or it's a peace for some while others are kept oppressed or marginalized. So this is not really peace. The peace that is true peace, again, I believe, is a gift and something that we're offered and asked to hold tenderly and to open and to it's a different experience to say, well, peace is already here, even in situations that are anything but peaceful. But peace is here. You actually start to see it in places you might not expect, but then you also can live it in a new way. It also takes some of the pressure off, again, of thinking we can take the reins of history and make it turn out right, which of course we never do. So the Advent theme of peace then is that invitation to invite us to accept the gift and to move away from thinking about peace as a project that we need to perform. The peace is there at all times. It's just waiting to be cultivated and to grow, and it does through even the smallest of our actions in ways that we may never be aware of what it does. And these actions are rooted then also in this inner peace that knows that the conflicts around and within us are not the final word. With the light of hope, we can embrace the gift of peace and shine that light widely for others. We started that in our last song. So when my neighbors gathered on the second Sunday to welcome this peace into our lives, what we would do is people would enter the hope section again and pick up one of the hope lights from that garden and carry it over to a tree in another part of really just across the sidewalk, but another section of the garden or of the lawn, and find a place around the base to put the light. And then I had folded a bunch of paper cranes like this, and I had beaded them and put like a string on them. And so people would then take a paper crane and decorate our red maple with the peace cranes, and sort of make a bit of a peace tree with it. And as they were doing so, we invited people again just to name either silently or aloud a place in the world or perhaps a place in their lives that really desperately needs that gift of peace and needs not just the gift of peace, but the ability sometimes to see how peace and where peace is already bubbling up, and then to foster those things. So this morning, last night, I was folding some peace cranes, and this morning I brought some, and I just invite those who are here to place a peace crane, ideally not too close to a flame of hope, but just to place the peace crane somewhere on the greenery of the Advent garden here, and say again aloud or in the silence of your heart of a place where you're wishing peace for. And people watching can also, if you'd like to unmute, and feel free also please to offer just a prayer for peace. So right now I'm holding the people of Gaza, Palestinians in general in the West Bank and in Israel, just desperately hoping that they might see peace, nurture peace as it's there, and believe that it is a future that will emerge.
Having the people of Honduras experience and
The people of the downtown east side of Vancouver and to find peace in their hearts and souls.
I'm also holding the old growth trees of our province and our planet, and the peace that we need to protect those vulnerable family members, so to speak, that are an ongoing and under threat. Whether we have peace.
People of Sudan.
Focus in the end.
Yeah.
Bringing of the men, women, and children of the Congo. Second, so
Anyone else have a place on your heart? The song that we would sing after this ritual is called Just One Candle. And it was brought home by my children. I think it's a fairly common one, or it was, for kids to sing in their winter concerts at school. And so it's not as familiar to people. So we have the lyrics here, and I guess they're in the chat. And I could play a little recording, but instead of doing that, what in my own tradition, which is Mennonite, when people didn't know a song, somebody would just sing it through, and I make no claims to it being the perfect melody, but I'm going to do it, and then you all can join for a second time. Maybe we'll do it verse by verse because there's kind of two sections. Sound good? Okay, good. Then you won't forget what I've done.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can get out our candle again.
Oh.
Just one candle shining in a window pane gives a light for all to see, a shining flame. Shining through the darkness, it helps to show the way, like a candle for peace today. Just one candle shining in a window pane gives a light for all to see, a shining flame. Shining through the darkness, it helps to show the way, like your candle for peace today. Shine your light for peace, shine it all around the world. Sing to everyone, let your voice be heard. Shine your light for peace, shine it everywhere. Show the people in the world you care. Shine your light for peace, shine it all around the world. Sing to everyone, let your voice be heard. Shine your light for peace, shine it everywhere. Show the people in the world you care. Thank you. All right. Joy, Advent-free joy. When we have a light of hope and we have we're engaged in exploring the gift of peace, we might find that we're overcome by joy. Now, joy in the teaching is not the same thing as happiness, nor is it dependent on external circumstances, or whether in our lives or in our world. And this might seem a little counterintuitive, but that's really what the gift of joy is. That it's one that we both anticipate, it's one that we celebrate during Advent, and it's one that really grounds us beneath the feelings that kind of come and go. I know there's lots of meditations, particularly in Buddhism, that kind of help you let go, just observe those feelings, and really it's what's underneath that is that source of the joy, which allows us to rejoice even in times of hardship, because we're trusting in God's promises and we're able to see the beauty of God's creation, both human and non-human around us. But if you're familiar with the Christian stories of the birth of Jesus, you might have noticed that people are often told not to fear. In fact, Jesus says this a number of times throughout the Gospels, but particularly in the Nativity stories, that the shepherds are told, don't be afraid. Mary's told, don't be afraid. So clearly these were pretty fantastical things. But I believe, I think, as I was thinking about it, I think that this reminder not to be afraid is perhaps that gift of joy that makes it possible, so that we are able to embrace our anxieties, which we all have, and our uncertainties, which we all have, without that feeling of powerlessness or the feeling that we stand alone against the world. So instead, we live in joy. We're able to rejoice because we know that within that uncertainty, there's this profound connectivity that connects us with one another and with the source of life itself. So on Joy Sunday, with the Advent Garden, we moved to a new section where there was a more mature tree, a nice big tree, dogwood, and I would blast Christmas music, and I'd pull out all these tacky Christmas decorations that I had collected from thrift stores and whatnot, and kids would climb the trees, and everybody would just decorate it as far as they can reach, and it would just be this god-awful concoction of decorations,
Yeah.
just absolutely fabulous and joyful, that left you really laughing because of how funny it was and tacky. But and then we would finish with singing Joy to the World. So today I've given a few little dingle bollies, I don't know what you call them. These aren't really gaudy ones. I tried to pick small ones. The ones that I had for the tree were sometimes bigger. But yeah, just put them in
What's
that?
The little and big ones?
Everything. Just put them anywhere. These won't matter if they get burned. Yeah.
We're joyful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always funny because it was a fairly big tree, but it was always because nobody had a ladder, right? So the kids would kind of climb up a little bit. There's mostly just this kind of ring around the floor at the bottom. It was just hanging heavy, full of decorations. Oh, yeah, thank you. This is nice for me to be able to do this because my kids are all teenagers now and really grumpy, and they stopped showing up. So I'm like, well, then I'm not going to do it on. So my Advent Garden is no more, but this is fun to do with all of you, to do another little Advent. For sure. So week 4 brings us to love. That's the final and the culmination of the 4 weeks. And by this time, we've probably even maybe reached the solstice, which of course seasonally is the turning point into light starting to emerge again. So for the theme of love for Christians centers around God's profound selfless love of all creation. Christians, of course, see the birth of Jesus as God being birthed among us, becoming matter, becoming in flesh, and it then represented really the greatest expression, the ultimate expression of holy love, which is a willingness to become intimately intertwined with the world in order to bring it healing. Which provides, I think, a model for our own love of how we are called to become really intimately intertwined with others in order to bring healing. That's how healing comes, wholeness and flourishing. And that really is at root the meaning of the Christian word salvation, salve, healing. So this love that we anticipate and that we celebrate isn't just those warm, fuzzy feelings, but those are really nice too. And I get lots of them, and especially seeing this, I do feel a little bit of warm fuzziness. But really it's rooted in action. It's rooted in God's action in the world. And then through Christian participation in the life of Jesus, we're able to get on board with that love. So again, it's not us sort of doing anything that comes out of our own ability to do it, but us getting on board with what God's already doing. So there's already this current running throughout all of creation that is God's love. And we just kind of jump on in, with when we paddle down that stream or swim or whatever we need to do. That Christian scripture teaches us that we love because God first loved us. And that's the direction of the love. So we don't even have to worry those times. I know I have them where I'm just not feeling any love. Like I'm just not feeling it. And but I can rest and not be worried or feel bad or feel guilty or anything in those times, because ultimately it's not my love anyway. It will come and it will flow again. So I know that. So this love in action then encourages the selfless acts on behalf of others, on behalf of creation, particularly for the poor or the outcast or the stranger. Of course, you see that at Christmas time and becomes the tradition often with people doing more actions or giving more generously to those who are in need. So in our Advent garden ritual, and it really was a pretty complex final love ritual, which we're not going to be able to do today, unfortunately. I racked my brain with how can I do this, and it just wasn't going to be possible. But let me walk you through what we did, just because, I don't know, I hope I can create a little bit of a visual image for you. But the idea was that in order to arrive at love, we really had to travel through this darkness, and we had to travel through all of these quadrants, so to speak, of the journey and of the garden. So we started at the beginning, and each person entered again humbly by ducking underneath the tree branches of the first tree, shrub, long bush, into what had been the hope garden, and picked up a hope candle. No, didn't pick one up. So now they're over at peace. So just sort of passed through the hope garden, went to the peace tree, and there picked up one of the candles from the circling around peace, and then carried it underneath the joy tree, and felt a little bit of that joy again as people were invited to look at the decoration. So went kind of around that tree, and then I had created a spiral made out of cedar branches that I'd snuck into Trout Lake late at night and collected. Always asking the trees if I could have their branches, and they always gave them to me willingly. But I would create this big spiral sort of on the front section. It was really city property, but it was kind of like a boulevard of spiral of branches. And then in the center of that, I had set up kind of like a stable-like dwelling and put a candle there. This sort of is representative of that candle. And it was already lit, but I'll light this one in a minute. And so people then were asked one by one to enter the spiral of love, the love spiral, and somewhere along the way, put down their candle in the greenery, so that as more and more people entered love spiral, it was more and more illuminated, and the path was more and more bright. And to me, that really symbolized how when we do these things, when we shine our light, or when we do an action of peace, it makes things more possible for other people. That it always builds, always a collective, and that's why it's always important, even when it feels like, well, what's the use of me doing this one thing because this problem is so overwhelming? Well, you never know. You put down that love candle, and someone's coming behind you. Somebody's coming up next. So then people would go one by one, and there at the stable with the candle, there were more tea lights that were unlit, and people were asked to light their love candle from the Christ candle and put it down then there around the stable. And just think about somebody that they love, and take maybe a few breaths to breathe in the love as it breathes. And then after that, we would sing a couple verses of Silent Night together. So seeing is really, that's a lot of walking, that's a lot of doing, and we're all sitting, and we have this lovely Advent wreath here. I'm just going to light the Christ candle in the center for love, the love candle, And just invite people to sit in silence for a few minutes, take a few breaths deeply. And as you do, just breathe in love if you're needing the love that surrounds you. Hold somebody in your heart who you are just are loving right now, or maybe somebody in your heart who you're having difficulty loving right now, knowing that it's not your task. It's God is already loving that person. And you can let that go.